Welcome to the 301 Club,
Welcome.
where we're going to give you the one-on-one on buying real estate in your 20s. Remember to like and subscribe. And today we're going to get started with shopping for a real estate agent. At this point, you've done your homework, and now it's time to get out in the field and actually look at some houses. However, you need a licensed real estate agent in most states, in our state of Maryland, to look at some houses.
Yes, so I think there's a pretty easy process to finding an agent. If you go through Zillow or Redfin, they have an option of setting up a tour with an agent. I believe you need a tour, or I'm sorry, it's the opposite. You need an agent to set up a tour for the most part, unless it's an open house, but for the most part, you need a real estate agent. And so that's what we did. I took that step, and I got onto Zillow. And to show you guys, I mean, I'll be able to pull up a Redfin, or I guess we were going to get into Redfin today, but I personally did it through Zillow, and that's kind of how I did it. And they have a find your agent option on Zillow, and they also have an option for, I believe, when you set up a tour, they get you in contact with an agent. So that's another way to do it. So I believe the main differences, I believe, from Redfin and Zillow, they're both the same. You can find real estate agents, because we did that. We ended up finding a real estate agent from Redfin as well as Zillow, and we tested the waters with both. They're different tours, obviously, but that's what we did. So I guess to get into it, I believe we set up an appointment or tour on Zillow. That's how we met our actual real estate agent, the one we ended up spending the most time with. So I believe that's kind of like how we ended up finding him, but we did, exercise our options as you were supposed to, at least rule of three. So that's what we did. And the main difference between Redfin and Zillow, I believe Redfin is like a seamless process. You can get a loan and actually go through the whole process of getting a house with them. And so that's kind of like an easier way to go about it. That's an option. So that's what we did. And I can pull it up, I believe. I'll at least pull up. You want Redfin, I guess?
We can start with Redfin.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I did. So like if you look up buy, put up a location. We'll do our current location. And I'm pretty sure it was a seamless process. I actually did it on my phone. So I believe what I did was I clicked the actual place I was interested in, scheduled a tour, and then I believe when you schedule a tour, you set up a time. I'm hopefully it doesn't lock in for sure, because if it does, then we're gonna be So it has you fill information. So I believe after this screen, it links you up to a real estate agent. So I don't know if we want to go through that now, but I think for right now, like it's kind of like a seamless just to like give them like an example. It's pretty easy. So you fill out your information, you hit through the next screens, and it'll contact you with, or it'll get you connected to a real estate agent. And so that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. So you want to show them how to do it on Zillow as well?
Yeah, I believe
we would suggest as rule of three, get one agent on Zillow, one on Redfin, and one from a family friend.
Right, exactly. And you source that from your family friend on your end. And so like a lot of the times when you see a place that's for sale, so let me go back over to the main screen. So then if you click on a house, it's the same as Redfin. You can request a tour, and then you pick a date to request a tour. You do request a time, and then you put in your information and you request visit, and then I believe this gets you in contact with an agent. And if it doesn't, because I think this is like more for the buyer's agent, they do have a tab here, and I don't think I did it this way. I think on my phone, I would try it on your phone first as like a rule of thumb, because that's what I did, and that walked me through everything. It's like, do you need a real estate agent? That was like part of the questioning for like the setting up the tour. So that's what I would do. But if you go to find an agent finder, you also have the option to go through a list of agents that they have currently listed. So that's another option, and you can narrow it down to the area, the specialty. And I would, I would probably do listing agent. I believe I actually didn't use this, so like this is gonna be a quick like, or probably what I'll do is they'll be able to see this screen, but I'll keep it simple and probably keep it to any. Just looking at it now. Buyer, I guess a buyer's agent, because they're gonna buy. So I would hit that for the specialty. So go through that and like search up.
Yeah, quick note for the audience on what a buyer's agent is. So something that we didn't actually know when we first started is that you have a buyer's agent and then you have a seller's agent. So, and actually an agent acts as both sometimes. the one we were working with at first, he was a seller, but he wasn't selling the houses that we were looking to buy. So therefore, he was our buyer's agent. And what your buyer's agent is going to do is he's going to work with the seller's agent, who is usually a different person. And I would recommend to always have it be a different person, because if it's the same person, then, you know, they're both in it. The one person is going to be in it for the commission at the end of the day, because the buyer's agent in the state of Maryland, the buyer's agent gets the money from the seller, gets their commission from the seller, and the seller's agent gets the commission from the seller. So at the end of the day, they're getting their commission, and it's kind of indifferent about which side they're on if you have a separate seller's agent and a separate buyer's agent.
Right. It's true. So that's I guess the definition for that. So what I would do is didn't personally use this, but it seems pretty easy. You just look up you set in the filters, area, specialty, and then search it that way, and then go through the reviews. As I'm looking here now, they have reviews for them. The way we did it personally, we just went through the setting up a tour, and then that kind of connected us with an agent automatically. But it would probably be a better idea to use this way, and I hit the agent finder off of the main menu, and I believe Redfin's the same situation. You can find a real estate agent. Yep, find an agent. So they have the same tab on the top of the screen. So it's the same sort of deal there.
Yeah, and like the way we approached it is that we were moving very quickly.
Yeah.
We closed within a month. And so we took the route where we just found a property and we just requested a tour, and the agent reached out to us, and it was a wild card about who was going to be there. We didn't go into reviews, etc. We recommend to do that.
We got really lucky because the agent that we ended up agreeing to, work with was his agency is very popular. They're actually making a Netflix show about the actual agency. So I believe it's like great to like maybe like do your research, but also do your research after you meet the person. Just to get into it a little more. But yeah, we found a few agents. We found about 4, I believe. 4 is what we actually talked to. I know we said rule of 3, but we ended up talking to 4.
Yeah, rule of 3 means at least 3.
Yeah, it's like the minimum.
So our first agent was from Zillow, and we met up with him, and we had a great rapport.
No, I think it was Scott, actually.
Oh.
So
yeah, that's right. We started in Baltimore.
We started in Baltimore, I believe. Or was it Aziz first? Do you remember? I believe it was Scott. So
we started in Baltimore with Scott, and he showed us that he was a very knowledgeable agent. This is the personality of him. We walked into the house, and he explained to us about how the staging process worked. I had a question because as I didn't know the answer, you can ask your agent, and they're going to give it to you because they're trying to make a commission, right? So my question was, do they stage a house in a certain way to attract a certain audience? Because when we went into that Baltimore home, it was staged as almost for a family, because there was a room with a crib, and there was a master bedroom, etc. The kitchen was built for a large family. There was a dining room table. So we asked him, and he said, no, actually, there's no point in staging it for the demographic you're trying to attract. So just goes to show that ask your agent whatever questions you have lingering. You can also comment below if you have any questions for us about how our experience was, or if you want to test our knowledge on anything that has to do with staging a home or
any other questions that they have that they felt like they wanted to ask, and even include that on the other videos or other podcasts.
Yeah, it all comes into when you first enter the home. Your agent is going to be there to just follow you around. So you have to have the questions. You have to have the ideas. You have to have
Don't
what
expect
you're
them to
looking
do
for.
the work for you, because they're just there to provide information, but you have to ask the right questions. Because we asked them a lot. We knew something. So I think, funny enough, I think it was Aziz that we talked to before, because he mentioned something about a contract and whatnot. And then when we talked to Scott, we mentioned the closing clause, there was a few clauses in the the offer letter, and like things that we wanted to include in the offer letter. We ended up asking Scott about, which if you want to get into it, I guess we can.
Yeah, so the offer letter is going to come when you're ready to buy the house. So at this point, we're still looking we're looking to choose a real estate agent.
But like that's kind of, I guess, to keep it short, is like that. The reason why I mentioned it was because like that's kind of like the questions you have to ask. You have to be able to come up with good questions, and let's say you heard something from someone else, verify with them, or just ask them questions about how processes work. Because we asked him about the offer process, and then he gave us that information where you can do an escalating clause. So those are the things that I feel like are important to understand. It's just like don't be afraid to ask questions, do what you need to do your research, and then go into those tour days with like maybe rule of three, or maybe at least three questions.
Yeah, so an escalation clause is when you buy a house at a certain price, but you give a little wiggle room in the appraisal, which an appraisal is going to happen once you actually choose a house. So shopping for an agent, you're not going to need to know exactly what the appraisal amount should be. For us, it was $10,000 beyond what the sale price of the house was. And if you remember the example in Baltimore, that house was on the market for $285, but it sold for $315.
Right.
I can assume there was an appraisal clause in there, especially in a seller's market, which is when the sellers have more leverage than the buyers, so they're going to take on less risk from selling without contingencies. So yeah, so at this point, we decided that Baltimore wasn't a great spot. Scott was very good to follow up, and I know he was talking to you,
that's
John.
the thing. He did a great job. I really enjoyed working with him. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the area that we wanted to work with, and so he was a Baltimore oriented. I believe he's based out in the Inner Harbor area, so that's kind of why we didn't go with Scott per se. But that's when we met Aziz and Tommy. So if you want to get into maybe talking to Tommy, and then we'll finish off with Aziz.
Yeah, so we've already mentioned Scott from Zillow and Aziz from Zillow. I got Tommy because, so this might be a common thing amongst millennials. You're going to have a friend from high school who, you're in your high school Facebook group, and they're going to post on there, hey, I got a job as a realtor. Is anyone looking to buy a house? And that's what happened. I reached out to my friend from high school. He said he was a realtor. Unfortunately, he ended up not being a realtor no longer, and that goes back to the fact that there was a lot of people trying to become realtors in the 2020 era because how low interest rates were. They were about 1-2%, historically super low. And like we mentioned, realtors make their money on the commission, so they're going to try to get into a hot market, a seller's market. And unfortunately, I think this high school friend didn't last long, so he suggested to me another person. But the moral of the story is that you ask who you know, someone you trust, for a recommendation for somebody. And Tommy was very professional. However, I think the downside of it was that he was leaving. While he was showing us the houses, he was leaving to go on calls, and he wasn't really fully there. He didn't mention to us that he was from the area. As opposed to Aziz, he was super great at telling us that, yeah, if you're trying to do this real estate process, which is building wealth instead of being a residential owner, you can even be both. But he had given us the idea that he was working with somebody who had already been through the process of owning 4 properties. Yeah, and so we believe that if you own 4 properties, you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that conversation happened towards the end of our picking a real estate agent, and I think that on a day that we had tours with Aziz, we ended up going to a smoothie shop and talked to him about those things. But before we get into that, I do want to mention the one real estate agent from Redfin. So we did have a Redfin real estate agent that we set up a tour with, and I believe it was just one house, but we don't even really remember. I don't really remember the interaction because it was a long day that day. I believe we had already set up other tours, I believe, and that was kind of like the last one for the day. But for the most part, he did a decent job, but not enough to be memorable. It just seemed like it was pretty quick, I'd say. I mean, the place itself wasn't the best. It had a lot of rooms, but I think it was in the $300,000 range out of our budget. But it was just something that you can do is set up multiple appointments or tours with different real estate agents. And so I don't know if you want to get into the next thing, which is I guess the title company and how you found that.
Yeah, so at this point in time, we had done our due diligence, and we realized that we were really serious about buying a house, which you should be at this point in the process if you're already talking to realtors, because you don't want to waste their time, and you want to be ethical about this. And at this point, we were looking for a title company, that's going to be, in certain states, you need a lawyer present and a
intermediary, like a third party, sort of, right?
Yeah, someone who can sign the documents and is certified to sign those documents.
And can hold the money, too.
It's basically just paying money to get something done from a lawyer. And when you hear the word lawyer, you're going to think that's going to cost money. And this is the truth. You can save up to $1,000 in your title company if you look for an employer. I'm guarantee you there's a program. For me, it was called ARAG, ARAG, where you can get a discount on your title company. And actually, for me, it was free. So depending on your employer insurance program, you can get really good cost savings. For us, it was about $1,000. So that's just a quick note that at this point, once you have already shopped for a few realtors, you want to start looking for a title company. And then after that, you got to start breaking up with some of the realtors.
Yeah, and I believe the title company also is like a person that holds the money as well. I've known someone along the process mentioned that they're like the lawyer side of it and the legality side of it. There's also like that they receive money, they hold the money, they verify the money, and disperse it to the loan agency or the loan officer or whoever you get your loan with.
Yeah, the thing about the title company, it's not important about the rapport you build with the title company because you're only going to see them
it's
at closing
transactional,
date,
really.
and it's more about, so look at them as a dollar sign. But your real estate agent, that could be more of a friend. You know, build rapport and make sure you know you want to make sure he knows what he's talking about and that he's answering your questions very confidently.
He's present. He's there. He's giving you information that you didn't even know, like new information. You know, and I think that's kind of what we did, and that's why we ended up choosing the real estate agent that we did, because he brought a lot of things to the table. And to get into it now that we've mentioned it is once we found and sourced all the real estate agents, it came time to picking one. The reason we went with the real estate agent we picked was because he added value about the real estate industry itself. So I believe that was a big plus, and we built the rapport with him that one day we ended up getting a smoothie at a spot over in, I believe, in that area where we were touring. It might have been Germantown area, but
yeah. So here's the little tip. Sometimes when you're setting up housing tours and you look at a house, we looked at a condo that was totally not worth our time. It looked like it was for like a boyfriend, girlfriend, couple. You couldn't even have a kid in there. Remember, our strategy was that we wanted 3 bedrooms at least. There was only 1 bedroom, and it was like a dining room built for a family. So we decided that no, we're not going to go here. So we didn't spend that much time there. Right. So we had free time. So our realtor, our agent, that's another word, actually suggested that we go to get some smoothies and talk about our experience so far. And
one of the biggest things, like, he really wanted to know. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's one of those things that those extra things matter. So if you see a real estate agent putting in the work to like be like, hey, listen, like, I want to pull you aside and talk to you a little more, I think that's great. So
yeah, we thought that was very genuine and a great place to start. And considering that we were already juggling of 3 or 4 real estate agents, that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back for us to choose him. And something we noticed about the smoothie visit is, one thing he asked us is, hey, are you guys overwhelmed? And that was really great, because what we started to do is that we were trying to increase our budget of $300,000 because we were getting shop happy. And I think that he really settled us and centered us back into realize that, hey, we need to keep it below 300,000.
Yeah, he said, like, the goals you came into it with, keep those same goals. Don't get shop happy and feel that you can buy an expensive place and figure it all out after. And also keeping in seasoning in mind, which is start small, go big. So start small, because that's how you're gonna finesse the process, because you start small. You work your way up. You keep it individual, like, what's the word for it? Residential. You keep it residential.
Don't overextend yourself.
Because if you overextend yourself, then you have to move on to the next big thing, and that's going to be a whole different process, and that's less properties. Versus if you start small, you get a $200,000 place, maybe even, then you move your way up. Get maybe even 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom to 3 bedroom. But then you have that excuse. Oh, I outgrew it. Let me get another loan. Work with me. And so that's how you're gonna finesse working with the loan officers. Is, so keep those in mind. That's something we had to keep in mind. And to add to that meeting was, he mentioned the big thing, which was he was in the real estate agency already, real estate market already. He had his own property, and he had a mentor. His boss had already 4 properties, and no other real estate agent ever mentioned anything about that. They didn't even mention that they had properties themselves. So big green flag for us. We were like, you know what? Let's settle in with this guy. He might be the one to help us with this process and just kind of give us that extra experience in the future, mentorship and whatnot.
Yeah, so then what you got to do is you got to man up and just break up with all the other realtors, because ethically that's the right thing to do. And if you find a house with one realtor who you didn't really like, just go look at the house again with your favorite realtor. And that's a very ethical way to deal with that. And so we'll end the episode with the fact that
Well, just closing out, just texting them, calling them, whatever it may be. I texted and Scott, hey, listen, we ended up going with the area in Gaithersburg, not in Baltimore anymore. You know, if we ever get property out there, we'll let you know. So, you know, just be as straightforward as you can, you know, and just tell them honest truth. So, like, if there's anything, like, you know, that comes up, you know, just don't be afraid to say.
Yeah, so last thing is, you know, check yourself on reality versus what you read online, because in reality, it all comes down to networking, finding your realtor. If you want to be successful, you got to have 3 choices. And at the end of the day, you got to start setting up house tours, and you're going to have a lot of weekends available to set up. We suggest 4 a day, at least 3, rule of 3. But we'll talk about that in the next episode.
Yep. See you then.